I remember standing at this very podium during high school graduation almost 20 years ago as it was yesterday. I was crowned valedictorian that year. Saying I was shy back then would be an understatement. Ever since I was a little girl, I mastered the art of invisibility. I learned to keep my head down, play small, and never make eye contact with teachers or students. Everyone called me names. They talked about my old clothes, they talked about my nappy hair, they even talked about my big feet. Nobody, and I mean nobody, liked me, or spoke to me. I was teased and bullied incessantly and endlessly my entire 4 years of high school simply because they felt I was ugly and weird. They didn't even call me by my name. They just called me that girl, it, or simply it. When I wasn't able to use what I call my superpower of invisibility, I was forced to live in dreaded reality, having to keep everyone away from me for fear I will be exposed of my dirty, dark secrets. So I wore a smile. My smile became my shield, the protective wall I built up to block hurt from getting, not allowing me to feel any hurt or pain. The bad part about that is nothing gets out, including all the toxic loathing dying to get out. I could not trust, I could not feel, then soon, I began to accept being called the girl called it. So I remember standing there thanking God, the staff, and my fellow students for having chosen me as their valedictorian. It still didn't make sense why they elected me. I had zero personality, but the best grades. I wasn't going to attend at first, but at the last moment, I changed my mind because I made a promise to someone many years ago that I would, and I refused to break that promise despite my mind, body, and soul telling me to take the easiest way out, like you always do, and spare yourself unnecessary taunts, boos, or even worse, throw something at me when I walked across the stage. I thought about graduation day for as long as I could remember. I dreamed how proud my mother would be as she watched me accept my glory, give my valedictorian speech, and receive my diploma with honors on a full college scholarship. How we would celebrate over dinners at a fancy restaurant and be so happy that our hard work paid off, and we would share victory of our accomplishments together. Fortunately, most of those things we imagined came true with the exception of one, the most important one of them all. I don't have my mother to share it with me. The moment of truth had arrived. At the podium's microphone, I was so nervous and dizzy that I didn't think that I could stand anymore and was about to panic. I had my speech ready. It was short, brief, generic, and memorized. The sooner the better, I thought. But when I tried to speak, my mind went completely blank and my body froze. In that moment, my inner conscious took over. I began to feel a moment of clairvoyance and serenity. Then something happened. Right there, right then, my mother's voice overwhelmed my being as if a switch I never knew existed was powered on and cranking maximum capacity. All at once, all the lessons that she taught me over the years began to shine through. In front of a mass of unnamed faces, I wanted to save my life.
假如你想快乐1个小时，就去睡个午觉，一个张天。就去钓鱼，1个月就去结婚，1整年继承一笔遗产，1辈子去帮助别人。
That's a Chinese proverb that my mother taught me. She was fluent in Chinese and taught me. It means, if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. But if you want happiness for a lifetime, help somebody. I used to doubt if I would ever be able to experience the latter, which is happiness for a lifetime, because up until that point, I haven't experienced one day of happiness since the day she died. Right before graduation, I remember seeing a mental health professional who told me the benefits of opening up and share whatever on my mind, that if I don't open up and talk about my past, I'd always be as sick as my secrets. That part disturbed me to the core because I have many of them, like my mother had. She used to say things like, all secrets become deep, all secrets become dark. That's the nature of secrets, and that the sweetest smiles always hold the darkest secrets. I mastered that my entire life. That way people won't expect much from me. I play small. I would pretend everything is perfect on the outside, even though you're miserable in the inside. The doctor suggests that in order to get to the root of my problem, I should unconsciously write my thoughts down on paper and read it out loud to myself, or have the courage to say it aloud in front of others. To let it just flow, and above all, be brutally honest. If I want to find happiness, that notion never crossed my mind. Even in 1,011 years or so, I thought. My mother, Miss Jessica Jones, was the most loving and generous person you could have ever wanted to meet. She was the type of person that would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. She was gorgeous, perfect. She was a prostitute and heroin addict. My mother did what she had to do to survive, to provide me with shelter and nice clothes and to put food on the table. But it was hard. Still hard to understand why my classmates' parents all had normal day jobs and my mother's job was overnight. She would come home right before I woke up with tons of cash, and she always rushed to take a bath before she would even hug me. I trusted everything my mother told me. As far as my father is concerned, I never met him. My mother rarely spoke about him, and the only thing she did say was that he gave me you, and that's all that mattered. Luckily, we had Auntie Birdie in our life. She was born a male and met my mother for the first time on the Hoe Stroll over by the West Side Highway in downtown Manhattan. She was only 17, so young and inexperienced when a small-time pimp started to beat her because she didn't want to be owned by him. Everyone just stood there and watched him beat my mother like she was a man. Just as she was about to lose consciousness, the pimp was lifted off her by what he must have thought was a large woman. Now, Auntie Birdie is 6'1" and nearly 6'4" depending on what size heels she wore that night. When the pimp saw who it was, he pulled a switchblade and threatened to use it. Big mistake. Birdie not only took the switchblade from him, she gave him a whooping so bad he retired after spending 6 months in the hospital. After that, she took my mommy under her wing, and we've been together since. She loved my mother and me so much that we became all she had. What I disliked most about mommy was her nasty heroin addiction. Remembering those days brings back so many bad memories that I became overwhelmed with emotional anguish. In other words, I'm scarred for life. It was so horrible, in fact, I used to watch her shoot up right in her vagina because she couldn't shoot in her arms. In her profession, a junkie whore with track marks on her arms was not too appealing or financially viable. I can't count the number of times Auntie Birdie or I had to revive her from a near overdose. I remember the first time I saw her OD. Her skin was ashy, her eyes were rolled in the back of her head, and she had vomit all caked up on her mouth. It was awful. I remember all I could do was cry as I shook her and begged her to wake up. I thought she was dead. I was so scared that she had died that all I could think of was that there would be no one to take care of me. In fact, to this very day, I still have a fear of being alone. After the overdose incident, Mommy taught me how to bring her back to life in case it happened again. She told me that I should get a bunch of ice and put it inside her panties and to place some under her armpits. She said if that didn't work, I was to shove a couple of cubes inside her, inside her thing. I was 6 years old, but needless to say. After a while, it became as normal as shampooing my hair. I became her personal resuscitator. But that wasn't the worst part. Did you ever see someone you love dope sick? Oh my God, there's nothing worse. It's like, how can I explain? It's like watching your child get their fingers crushed in a door and their pain is so excruciating, but nothing you do can take the pain away. I wanted to take Mommy's pain away so badly, but I was helpless. I would ask her, Mommy, what's wrong? Can I help? With a forced smile, she would say, I'm okay, baby. Mommy's just a little sick. I ran out of medicine, but not to worry because the doctor is on his way. Now, you know who the doctor was. He was a friendly neighborhood dope man. Even though I despised him for pushing the dope on my mother, I remember being so relieved when I heard him knock on the door. Mommy would rush to the door quick and rip it open and then pass him something real quick and run to the bathroom. I would smile because I knew when she came out, she would instantly be cured of her sickness. She made no bones about what she did. And more importantly, she made sure I wasn't lame to nothing that she did. because that's how she got caught out there for being naive, and it destroyed her. She told me everything, especially about the evil that men and women do. Those talks always scared me, even to the point of me crying, but my mother refused to dumb it down. The stories were absolutely brutal, macabre, even cynical things about children. It's the world we live in. You either sink or swim, no excuses, and don't forget it's twice as hard for a woman, and you still get half the pay. That's why I tell you that to level the playing field, you have to use your mind, she said. Your strongest muscle and your worst enemy is your mind. Train it well. And she was doing just that. When it came to her profession, she said women are the real dons, or shall I say divas, who got the real power. She has broken some of the strongest and most powerful men in the world. That's power. But to hear a lot of girls tell it, you think that they are doing something different from my mother. They sell their bodies and do drugs like they're doing something different, like theirs don't stink. They're only delusional, fooling themselves. I hear them on places like TikTok, Instagram, all over social media running around saying, I don't do drugs, I only smoke weed and drink a little bit, just to get litty. To each their own. But do me a favor and ask any person who smoked crack, used heroin, or any other habit-forming drug for that matter, what drug did they start out using first? And I'll bet $1,000 to one that they'll say either innocent weed or innocent alcohol. How many misguided young girls you think actually aspired to become an addict and degrade themselves to get that next hit? My mother was one of them. She never thought it could happen to her. What I'm saying is that you just never know, so why take the chance? To this very day, I don't even know how alcohol tastes, because she told me once you have a taste of any of that, you're gone. I'm not going to be fooled by the illusion that one drug is worse than another, because it all leads down the same road of destruction. See, that's how moms got caught out there, which is why she schooled me to the fact that a drug is a drug is a drug. She knew better and did everything in her power to make sure I knew the truth. At times, it seemed like we were sisters because she didn't preach to me. She talked to me like you would talk to your younger sister, always schooling me. What I remember most about my mother was when she used to walk me to school every morning after she finished work. She would repeat these little affirmations and sayings, hundreds of them. She'd ask me these questions literally every single day over and over. What's the worst word in the world? And I would say, can't. She would then ask me, why? I would answer, because if you exclude that word from your vocabulary, then you can do anything you want. Are you a follower or a leader? Leader, I'd say sharply. What about being a parent? I'd answer, be the parent today your children will be proud of tomorrow. How about change? She'd say. The only constant in life is change. 5 by 5 rule? If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes being upset by it. What happens when tough times come? God gives his hardest battles to only his strongest soldiers. What about judging someone? Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. Financial rules. Adult or kid version, I asked. Kid version, Mommy said. Rule 1. Pay yourself first, 10% of your gross. Rule 2. Pay all bills on time. If I don't have any bills, you'll be sure to give me some by making me earn my keep. Rule 3. Give you 5% of my gross income to be invested in stocks, ETFs, and cryptocurrency per check to retire by 30 so I can build businesses. Rule 4. Save the rest to invest in real estate by 21. Rule 5. Be very okay with people thinking I'm broke or poor. Rule 6. Buy only things I need, not want. Failures, she'd always ask sternly. Failures are only failures if I give up. She would be so proud of me and give me the wildest smile that warmed me each and every time. She would always end as she fought back tears. What's the purpose of life? To be happy. If you want a friend, you must first be a friend. If you want to receive, you must be able to give. And if you want love, you have to show love. And who love you more than life itself? I love you, Mommy. I would ask her if I didn't need these things for school. Then what were they good for? Well, she never really explained that part to me. She just says that in time I'd understand. When she died, I thought to myself I couldn't go on because there was nothing In life, I had to look forward to. I felt that if I couldn't have my mother, what's the point? Well, over the years without her, there were plenty of days where I honestly didn't know if I could make it through another day. I could have given myself any reason to just quit, take the easy way out like so many people I've known in my life who gave up on me. All the abuse I suffered after she left, I became a shell. I was void of light. Every single day. Doubt tried to convince me to give in, but I couldn't, and I honestly never knew why. It wasn't until this very moment, this very second, I realized why I never gave up. It was because I didn't know how. That was something she never taught me how to do. You see, I realized that all those years when she was alive, what she was doing was preparing me for rough times, knowing that they will surely come. She told me how she was tricked into using heroin and became an addict. She told me that she was given a choice at the age of 15 when she got pregnant with me to either have an abortion or move out. Since she was unfortunate enough to have made those life-changing choices that ruined her life, she made sure I didn't fall for the same illusions and misconceptions that ruined her own life. So I guess she started instilling in me something more valuable than gold and something more precious than the largest of all diamonds. And that something is the truth. It's funny, but my mother told me that this was going to happen. And I'm not just talking about graduating from high school. She said that I was going to graduate at the top of my class and become valedictorian. She described almost to the letter how I would stand before my peers and graciously accept my award. That was almost 7 years ago. How did she know that would become reality? The walls I built up to protect myself from constant hurt, those walls helped me keep life in perspective to help rid me of the shame and humiliation I had coming up. I didn't feel normal, I felt nasty. No matter where I went or how much I achieved, I still feel dirty and less than other people. I would constantly imagine, what if these people knew my mother is a drug addict? How she sold her body to men she doesn't know, or that my auntie is a trans? How I live, the things that have happened to me? But in spite of it all, I managed to keep my head up, because I reasoned that my mother had to do what she had to do to survive, and what she did is no reflection upon me. It took me a long time to learn to think like that. What's done is done. Even if I didn't understand it, I had to accept it and move on. For people like me who saw the truth, I cry a river for you because I, like you, saw a glimpse of how uncaring and heartless this world can truly be. I know how it feels to suffer only because we were born into a hellish world that no child should need to see or have to bear. But here we are. If they were anything like me, I blamed everything on somebody else. My motto was simple. If there's no one else to blame, blame it on my mama. But blaming someone else was so easy, moving on was the hard part. So that left me with two choices. Should I feel sorry for myself and live a lonely, miserable life? Or should I do what I was taught? Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. That's what she taught me. I know no other way. See, little did I know, Mommy knew she was caught up in the grip of an addiction, which is a very, very cunning, baffling, and insidious disease. So she sacrificed her own life while preparing me for combat. Because again, she knew that it would be harder for me because of where I come from. She knew the odds were against me. So she groomed and inspired me with the only thing she could possibly offer me. Pure and unadulterated truth, even if it hurt. She knew that the real truth was very scary, but it's how you handle this truth that's going to make a difference in your life. If I had one wish, I would tell all the children who suffered because their parents were addicts or alcoholics and saw the horror that came with it. I would tell them it's not your fault. If you were molested like I was, beaten like I was, or homeless and abandoned like I was. And it's definitely not your fault if you've developed some dreadful disease or addiction. Whether it's an addiction to drugs or alcohol, sex or crime, it really doesn't matter because it's not wholly your fault, and believe that. She taught me that everything that glitters isn't gold and everything that looks sweet isn't sugar, because the things in this world that look enticing are really a ploy to get you hooked. Whether it's money, fame, fast cars, beautiful houses, or sex and drugs, it's all a setup to deceive us into thinking that these are the most important things that we need in our lives. Mommy made sure I didn't fall for that trap. She told me that if I don't stand for something, I'd fall for anything. And standing up for myself is something I definitely did. My name is Dr. Silver Jones, formerly known as the girl called It. And just for today, I found my happy.